If you figure out the Zoom soundboard, let me know.
Yep.
Yeah. Welcome, welcome. We've been chatting for a bit, but we hit the record button. Town hall number 10. I'm dialing in from Denver, Colorado from MCon. It's pretty much over. I think there's a lot of like groups planning stuff today, but I'm probably just gonna kick back and do some work. Yeah, and I put that on the agenda. I'll kind of give what I think are relevant updates. Yeah, I like doing the check-in round and having anyone be able to kind of popcorn, put some stuff on the agenda if they want. I linked a really rough agenda in it's in the forum, and I put it on the Discord announcement. But yeah, Phil, do you want to kick us off? How are you doing? Anything you want to talk about today?
I'm doing good, even though the loss of the Queen yesterday, getting over it. Yeah, everything good on my side. I didn't have anything particular though to discuss this week. Guess I've been pretty busy with my work at pool. So, but I'd love to hear more about MCon though.
I didn't even think you're going to show up today. I mean, the Queen's passing really hit you hard. And, do you all get the day off today, or?
No, we didn't. But I think we'll have. I think people do have a day off at some point.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Eric, how's your connection? I'll take it to you. Maybe not.
It's good. You're just you're in the phone in a phone in my pocket. I'm concreting. So
yeah. Right.
Yeah, nothing particularly new to report here. A little scattered on the homestead, but yeah, interested to. I also would like to hear more about MCon and anything you picked up, and also what I've been missing around here.
Okay, cool. John, metaphors are insert John Cena music right here, and then how you doing?
I'm a wild coyote drifting on the plain.
So good.
I'm just editing videos. I'm editing your Aave video, you and Eric going through Aave. That's a Journo DAO thing, so it's not a Re-Public DAO thing. But it could be cool to do like a similar type of walkthrough with the Re-Public app.
Yeah, for sure.
And
that's a good idea.
I don't know how we would get that screen with onto like some kind of desktop device while your faces are on there. Trying to think about how I would accomplish that.
I can do I can get an emulator up on a screen share. There are a few apps that I check in with every once in a while that can do like actually mirror your device like on your screen while you're talking.
Okay, even on a phone? Cool. Well, is there a way to set that up and restream, maybe do a restream screen share while we're talking, and then we could kind of walk through it?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Maybe try and make it like just 2 or 3 minutes where it's like just getting set up and going through settings. And
yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe we should schedule a time to do that then. I'm pretty free. I mean, I work from home on Wednesdays and Fridays, so I'm good. So all next week I should be good for that. And then this weekend I'm fairly free. I'm gonna go skating tomorrow, but that's it. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll check in with you And I also
Okay.
want to get an update. John and I have been trying to get him set up with a dev environment for JournoDAO, but also that kind of very similar setup for Re-Public stuff too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm excited to get you.
I'm gonna try to do. I think I'm gonna do an Amazon EC2 instance and then set up a Linux environment in there, and then that way I'll have access to it wherever I go, rather than having it only be on my desktop at home. So
Okay, cool. Yeah, there's also this thing they have. It's shadow.tech. Have you ever heard of that? It's basically like a remote Windows gaming PC that you can pull up on most platforms. So like you can play PC games through the app on your phone because it's just like a window into the desktop or whatever. It's
Huh.
it's pretty cool, but I did
Is that-
try and get a dev environment.
Is that like Steam?
No, Steam is like where you get the games.
Yeah, okay.
But this is literally like just a Windows machine that you can just like portal into from it.
Like a
From
VPN,
anywhere.
just straight in. Okay.
Mhm.
That's what
And,
the
yeah.
Amazon web services EC2 instance is basically. It's just you porting
Okay.
into a computer, and you can make it, Mac, Linux, or PC, whatever you want, Windows, and then set up whatever type of environments you want, dev environment, gaming, anything like that. So
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I did it like a year ago, but all this stuff moves so fast. I bet
Yeah.
Amazon's is better now. So.
That's like way back a year ago.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Well, we'll sync up on that later.
Okay.
Hey, one other thing.
Anything else? Oh yeah.
Yeah, one other thing I'll share. I already told Keith about this, but just for Phil and John's benefit, I had a call a couple days ago with these guys in San Diego from this thing called Human Space Program. I mean, like probably half my time is spent writing about space stuff. And this is a group that like their whole thing is to pull together like a bunch of smart people and like a really diverse set of people from all around the world to author a blueprint for like a long-term plan for human space exploration. Kind of the idea being that that's something that should really be crowdsourced and not like left up to a couple governments and Elon Musk. And like they've got a Web3 guy, and they're pretty interested in making the process as like decentralized as possible. And so we had like an hour-long call, and they're pretty interesting dudes. And there's like in terms of the space world, they've got like some pretty heavy hitters that are involved. Like one of the main guys is this dude, Frank White, who you may not have heard of. He's like kind of a famous sci-fi author. He co-authored a few things with Isaac Asimov back in the day. But anyways, the reason I bring it up is, I mean, they've got a Web3 guy, but I mean, kind of like a lot of people, they're like, their executive director is totally green when it comes to Web3, and their Web3 guy came to us through Sapien, and he's fairly new to things as well. And they were talking about like, we had a long conversation about Clarity and just like different tools, and then like they were asking, what we're doing for governance, and so I gave them kind of like the brief overview of Re-Public voting, and they were kind of interested in that. So yeah, just wanted to put that on your radar that conversation happened, and maybe there will be some follow-up happening in the weeks to come.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's kind of like a good segue into MCon, where it's just basically, it's all very like DAO focused, and a lot of the presentations were like what went wrong with certain DAOs. I mean, people presenting like the DAOs are considered like pretty successful now, but have had some like rocky times. And one investment DAO was going over their path towards like getting people to participate and how they, you know, that sort of like free rider problem where like there's a few people doing all the work and then just some hangers on who are also benefiting from that work. And so it's like first we tried cajoling people and being like, hey, can you like contribute more? And then we tried like different and like stick and carrot incentives. They even did like a employee of the month type thing. It was like a contributor of the month, like lame incentives. But the funny thing is where they ended up was something similar to what the voting app does, where it's like they release new shares every month according to like people who participate. And so the people who like participated early on kind of get inflated away as far as their share, and then like you kind of have to like keep participating in order to like maintain your level, or else like as their token inflates, then your portion of it goes down. So I felt pretty good about like, I don't know, that reinforced to me that like maybe we're on the the right track there. If you know, a DAO, an investment DAO that's gone through like 2 years of iteration, it's kind of like ended up in the same territory. So that was pretty cool. Overall, I think I've been thinking about this more in terms of Journo DAO, but since, you know, we're so closely related at this point, I think it's definitely going to manifest itself in Re-Public too. But just really focusing on like the human element of more like a human first like design of a DAO, because if you focus on like a product first, like the investment treasury or like the rewards mechanisms or the tokens or whatever, then you're kind of inevitably cutting corners with like the relationships of the people who are like building that, oftentimes for free, most times for free. And I think it just pointed out to me that like you could avoid a lot of pitfalls just by kind of putting a culture, norms, systems in place to address those things like ahead of time. And so we don't really need to get into things right now, but I think just over the coming weeks, some of this stuff will be like materialized and like different ideas of what we can do. And but it's kind of like what we were doing with like the onboarding. I think it's funny, like we just kind of came up with that with going to like first principles, like what would we want to have happen, you know, like how would we want to be like pulled into a DAO and shown around and stuff. And I don't even think, might not have even talked about this with John and Eric, but our idea is to just like, for every new person who wants to be onboarded, they get paired up with somebody. And then that's just like their buddy who they can ask about the DAO, any questions, like what am I supposed to be doing? What did I miss? Like, what does the DAO do in this situation? Like, what's going on? That sort of thing. It's just like, okay, this is your person, your point of contact, instead of like going through like all the different rules and edicts of a DAO, like in the Discord or whatever, trying to figure out where you fit in, what roles you should take on or whatever. Like if you don't want to self-start, you could just like ask your onboarder or whatever they're called, like, what should I be doing? I'm interested in doing this. How do I like do that? You know, which I just think it seems like a lot more efficient and user-friendly that way. I think why people haven't done that in the past is they're trying to bulk up on like Discord numbers. Like if you're a tokenized community or like that's important, you know, and you're taking investment. But since we don't really want to do that, I think you can lean into that and just be like one-on-one, like onboarding, and then like a good criteria for like whether that person is like sufficiently onboarded would be if you both agree that like the new person is then ready to go on and onboard somebody themselves. And you know, because you might feel like they're ready, but they're like not feeling confident about it. And so it could range from like an hour to like a week or 3 weeks or whatever, or indefinitely if somebody's just like, some people aren't going to be into like being available to onboard other people, and that's fine. But I don't know, any thoughts about that or question? Yeah, Phil.
I just want to add also what I like about this onboarding process is that it creates a human connection. Like it makes you like it makes everything more true in some way, and it creates this sense of community way faster, in my opinion, when you're either paired up with someone and you've got like a human that's there to help you out. Like it makes everything more true. And I feel like as much as for like a cooperative or a DAO, if you see like a DAO as like a digital cooperative, then it's there to serve its members. So it's all about humans first.
Yeah, and so I don't think we've done a good job like formalizing that, because there hasn't been a lot of people joining, and then the people who do join are already kind of like pretty proactive, like Summit, and some of these other people just kind of like get it right away, and they're like familiar with DAOs or whatever and feel comfortable reaching out to us. But I can at some point we should like figure out how to start like a queue of people who like volunteer to be like, hey, I actually want to like contribute or be onboarded, and then they get paired with somebody, and then we can kind of just go down the queue of people. But, like,
DAOs remind me a lot of the early church. I went to seminary and we studied a lot of the early church, and in the early 2000s, around late 90s, early 2000s, there was kind of a big movement of home churches, and they wouldn't let home churches get more than about 15 people. And then when they hit that point, they got too big, and then they would split off and form new ones and multiply in that way in kind of a decentralized fashion. And within each organization, because there's a bunch of organizational psychology that goes on in seminary that you learn and study, as well as in DAO psychology as well. And like 5 of the main roles in these little home churches were, one is the apostle. The apostle's like the builder, the founder, and they plant, and then they form the archetypes and the structures, and then they move on after all that's done, and they go do that for the next one. So they would be one of the first people when the church gets too big in the home to split off and go somewhere else and found the next one. The second one is the teachers, the people that mainly take on the teaching role to help educate others. Third one would be the prophets, the people with the forward-facing visions, and a lot of times they're known as the radicals. They don't really get along with the more stable people there. And then the fourth one is the evangelists, the people out there spreading the word, talking the good, the good news. Literally the good news is euangelios in Greek, and that just means news. It means something new, something fresh, and that's it. And then the last one is the pastor. The pastor and the prophet don't get along. They're butting heads constantly. Because the prophet wants to move forward, the pastor wants to take care of the flock, and those are basically like the 5 pillars of, I guess, like a small organization like a home church. And then the reason they're multiplying like that and never forming some kind of big gathering is because, or ecclesia in Greek, which literally means gathering, it's because it was against the law in the Roman times to have a large gathering. So the way they infiltrated the system underground as a subversive movement was to never get bigger than more than around 15 people and always split off in a decentralized fashion.
That's awesome. I had no idea.
Yeah.
But that sounds like a lot of mapping to DAOs. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and they voted. They never really had one person at the top of the structure. It was a horizontal organization, and they didn't have code, but they had their text. And back then they didn't have the Bible, so they had these letters, the epistles, that they would all pass around to each other. So and that was their code. That was their social code.
There's also, I find, this feeling of accountability that you get from being in a small group that you don't get when the group is huge.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, because everybody knows each other. There's that human element there that's not completely codified. And the only part that is codified is whenever you're supposed to branch out and form a new version of that. And then something gets codified and it's replicated over, and the apostle is the one responsible for forming that and sticking and adhering to that code.
Mm-hmm. That makes me think, I don't know, something like that. So say that there's like 200 people in Re-Public. It seems like from the members side, it would be better if you didn't really have to think about all those other people, and you just kind of had like your small group of that like you get along with. And it's making me think that, you know, there's like the guild concept, or like that we've generally kind of we generally do it by skill set, but I kind of have this intuition that might be more successful if you can somehow just go towards like the people that you gel with, like personality wise, and it doesn't matter so much like what you're working on. Like you could be working on like very different things, but just like, I don't know, your like little friend group, it's like, you know, in like freshman year of college, I just kind of gravitated towards like a certain group of people who like really there's like nothing in common other than like we all kind of like enjoyed each other's like vibe or whatever, and we were all very different in different ways. But I think if there's some way to kind of, I don't know, facilitate that, or like just allow people to congregate in these ways, but maybe there's roles that like then once you kind of form the people that you get along with, then there's like specific roles that you can all decide like who's doing what, or something just within that group, like the prophet or the pastor or like whatever. I don't know, what do you think of that?
Well, yeah, whenever you like, okay, I grew up getting picked on by jocks, you know, and by football players and, you know, stuff like that. As you know, as a skateboarder, you know, whatever, I got beat up a lot when I was younger, and I took it upon myself when I was 41 to join a rugby team because I knew I had baggage and from that, and knew I needed to confront that baggage. And so I did, and I learned through that there are people, even on a rugby team, like the people that are supposed to hate the most, jocks, right, that I like and that I don't like, and that there are commonalities, and that there's a lot of diversity within a group such as a rugby team, a lot of very, very different people. And there's diversity in there if you look close enough in any type of group you go into. And you know, so a lot of this manufactured diversity, I think, is kind of the wrong top-down approach. You know, it should be more organic and finding people's specific personalities and talents and finding a way to make them congeal. But when it gets too big, it becomes really difficult, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like you were saying about the guilds, which is good, but even within like the AV guild and Bankless DAO, there's so many different types of personalities, even though we all like AV, you know, like you would think we're all the same. Not at all, you know.
Mm-hmm. And then, first of all, yeah, I'd identify with that that past. I think it was probably more rough in Texas than it was in Oregon, but yeah. And but I'm wondering if there's a way to make that part of like the goal of like your one, hey, flow science in the house. I wonder if, so just to get you caught up, we're talking about like onboarding people like one-on-one, like if a new person comes into the DAO, like matching them up with somebody who's already there, and then like that's their resource, their buddy, their like, you know, there's lots of names for it. I'm drawing a blank, but what if that person, part of their task is to kind of get ideas of like who this new person might get along with? Like, could be that like the person who's onboarding you is not actually like you don't actually like gel with them or whatever. You might have like a friendly relationship, but you're not really like the same, thinking along the same lines or whatever. But the onboarder could be like, oh, you know who you should talk to is like this person or this person. They can kind of like help you integrate like socially into the DAO. I don't know. How's that sound?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had this conversation, I think, with a few people, and when it comes down to onboarding, like that's, if you can have that one-on-one experience, yeah, even if it's with a complete stranger, you know, that's actually kind of, I think, been some of the best interactions I've had in DAOs that I've showed up with. You know, where somebody is just like, yo, they kind of like get a little bit in your face and like, what's up? Like, who are you? What are you doing? Like, how'd you get here? You know, like, but it's like, oh, hi, like, you know, you just I don't know, you just start like chatting with somebody and get involved. And it's not just so many Discord servers, it's just usually just going to the Discord server, you get to poke around, which is also nice, but there's a lot, it's always different and like slightly different, you know, there's always like minutia, and if you get on autopilot and you're like shuffling it down and you're like, no, don't do that. So having, yeah, just having the dedicated, I guess, person. I like intro. I've tried starting using intros a little bit. I don't know if you guys are using that yet, but it's been fun to play around with it. A couple of groups I've joined and just meet random people. Part of the fun DAOs.
What is that?
Intros is like automated sort of like welcoming like matchmaking thing. So you kind of click on it, you click on a form, you say like what you're interested in, like, you know, what you want to, what your skills are, like what your you can set up however you want, really, like any sort of, you know, matchmaking questions, and then it literally, based upon the other people's answers, you just get matched with, either you get to choose if you want somebody that is more similar to you, or if you want somebody to meet somebody more different, like you can set up all those things. So it's pretty nice. And they're doing like a little free demo. So I played around with that. I found it, I first tried it in Algovera when I showed up in their server, and then I tried using it.
It's like a Discord bot, like app or something.
Yeah, you can. They have a bot now too. For a while, it was just like a link you just paste and you go to their forum. But now you can do it all on the person. So things like that.
I was in a DAO that was using that, and when it started pinging me like, hey, do you want to you know, connect with this other person in the DAO with your interests? I was like, I really don't. and it was assigned. It was definitely assigned to me like, maybe this is not the place where I actually want to be dedicating time, because it sounded like a chore, but I thought it was a fascinating concept. One thing I was going to say about the onboarding is like I really liked you know, in the beginning with DAO Planet, it was like one-on-one video interviews, like up to like a half hour each, that either, I mean, it was mostly Steve, but I did some of them, and then a few other people were like on these interviews, and like it did, like the thing is, it wasn't sustainable. It became like really overwhelming really fast. But I mean, if the idea is to keep it like is to keep it small, and then to, you know, distribute that responsibility among everybody, like maybe that's more sustainable, because it was like Elijah was saying, I mean, those are some of the most like valuable like experiences, like with onboarding, but like when you're responsible for conducting all of them, like it got out of hand pretty fast.
Yeah, and so I think I described it to Phil as like a vampire onboarding, where like you like onboard this person and then they can like onboard somebody else, and then it just like spreads or whatever. But I think it should be definitely like opt-in, you know, where it's not like somebody who comes into the server like, you know, hey, you have to like find your buddy or sign up here or whatever. But it's definitely like for the people who come and are just like a little overwhelmed, but do genuinely just want to get started with something, or like find out more, then they can just like do an emoji respond or something like that, and then everyone knows that like they're waiting to like for somebody to snag them and just like say, hey, I'm here. Like, what do you need? Like, what are your first questions? Like, how can I help you, get started or something?
Yeah,
I think a lot of people are more likely to return is if they
Yeah,
got
I
to
definitely don't want to
share
be a
like,
bottleneck, like doing all this.
I hear a lag. I can't, like 3 people were talking at the same
Oh,
time.
yeah, you froze there for a sec, but I think you're
Oh.
back.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of people are more likely to return if they get to at least tell a little bit of their story and perspective on something or their opinion on something and have it felt heard. And yeah. And I hate to just do the generic, tell me a little something about yourself, like icebreakers, what's your favorite, car but I don't know, just giving one thing I liked about, like Eric was saying about DAO Planet was everybody had at least a small chance to talk. Yeah. And sometimes there might be some advanced topics going on, but maybe somebody at some point recognize that and reel it back into, the overarching, why we're here type of thing, just to include others and then bring it back in, it's kind of like going up for breath.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I'm usually like allergic to icebreakers, but there is something about like, Phil and I were chatting for like a long time before we even like talked about like music or something, which is such a like huge thing to like know whether like you're, I don't know, you have these like touch points with somebody if like you like the same music. And so as much as anyone has like an appetite for that, that might just be good to go through stuff that like, even though we're about, personal data and data ownership or whatever, there's just like, well, let's bring in some other parts of your personality and see like that'll help like find the people that you gel with and help make sure that like this is a fun place for you to be just like in general, because we can't just be all excited about like data ownership 24/7 and like that's the only thing that's like bringing us together or something.
yeah, it's definitely like this intimidation factor of like wanting to do something, but like Eric was saying, like not that much. Like, just do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, get it a little there. Most people don't want to join it down and be like go gung ho all the way in. It's like, okay, get your feet wet, like just try this out.
Yeah, I
and,
was poking around this one DAO for a little bit, and they were like immediately on the first day trying to get me to like do this entire podcast thing for them, and I was just like, "Whoa, guys, I don't even like know you," thrusting all this responsibility on me, and like the second I got there, so I can see that. Like,
yeah.
both sides need to ease it in, like this is.
Mhm.
Some DAOs treat the new people as oh, they're here because they love us, not necessarily.
No, that's a great point. Dang it, what was I just gonna say? Yeah, it's gone. So any more to say about that, do you think? Or like in my mind, like it's kind of on me to outline what that might look like and just very vaguely, like without being too prescriptive, like write that. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. So I'm part of the Portland Incubator Experiment, which is just kind of like an incubator for Portland startups, and like over their summer course, and we're in a Slack, and like as you all know, like I'm already in like these 3 DAOs that take up most of my time, and I'm adding like another Slack, and like it's too much. But they put in this I think the app is called Donut. It's kind of like intros, it sounds like, where it just randomly matches you with the person every week, and you're supposed to like meet each other for like 30 minutes. And I had 2 of those, and they were awesome. And it was like very uncomfortable to like make it happen. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be so boring, and I don't want to meet anybody. And but then it was actually great, and I ended up like I'm gonna do some work for both of the people that like I met, and like one of them was the person at Widening Kennedy I mentioned a while ago that I kind of looped Summit in on, and I'm like, oh, I can't do this anymore because it's so successful. Like if I do this every week, I'm just gonna like continually add on like the things that like I want to do with other people. So something like that could be cool, but I definitely feel like that I don't want to do this. Like I don't want to, if we can get around that somehow. Hey, Summit, how's it going?
Good, guys. Nice to see all of you.
Yeah, thanks. We're talking about onboarding, and
Of users
somebody-
that come into the Discord.
yeah, more like maybe not even users, but just like people who are motivated by the mission, want to know like what's up and maybe contribute on some level, but don't know what's going on or how they can. And so we're just talking about like pairing new people up with like existing members so that like that's their one person that they can ask questions to and just get hooked up into the DAO. Like, oh, you should talk to this person, you should talk to this person, like what are you interested in, that sort of thing. So I think I'm gonna write up what we talked about, and then just maybe like come up with a safe enough to try, or just like a smallest implementation of that that we can maybe
Like a buddy
incorporate
system?
into our, yeah, totally. So I think it's pretty easy to just like come into a Discord and just be like, how am I supposed to get involved here? And it just seems like a good shortcut to just be like, here, it's this person, just ask whatever questions you have, just ask this person.
Well, I was lucky because Emery and Philip both reached out to me and set up calls. And so that kind of had the purpose, or that filled the role of welcome. It felt very welcoming. Get to know you. Who are you? Who am I? What are you interested in? And so maybe we just sort of use that as one of the components and build on that and scale that out.
Yeah,
Keith,
Phil, was that actually part of like what we had talked about, or were you just kind of reaching out of interest? Or
Summit, I think Summit was really interested, so it was I had to reach out. But I think Keith, that's also kind of what we did initially when we first met too. We like jumped on a call, got to know each other, and then I just kind of felt like, oh well, I get along well with Keith. Plus, we're both like we both really care about the mission. So now I'm still here. So I think this is like it seems like a success for me. Like just that first, if you see someone's interested and they're down to hop on a call, then let's just do it. It seems like it leads to good retention up to now. But we also had discussed together, Keith, if someone like, it doesn't have to be, for some personalities, some people like talking over a call might be a good fit. For some other people, maybe they're not interested, they just want to chat. So it's more like you just have to adapt to the person you're partnered with.
Cool. Well, I'm glad. I don't know. I like talking about that stuff, and so I'm glad that we kind of talked that through, and we can make that happen in the coming weeks.
If I could offer up, I think that one thing that would help people is having things to work on. So maybe we could have a list of tasks, like for example, come up with marketing copy, or try out the app and answer these 3 questions, like some really easy getting started tasks that draw people in. And then maybe there's a semi-formal step after they've done 2 minutes of work or 20 minutes of work, or just some amount of like engagement. Then we can say, well, what is your background? What are your interests? Maybe we can actually put you in charge of, or at least assign you to some work stream so that you've got something to be doing on a semi-regular basis.
Yeah, as go ahead, Sam.
I was going to say, I was just thinking of things that are really easy. Like we could even ask people to try out other products like Swash or Pogo or Poly, because all of those things deepen a person's understanding of what can be done, what other people are doing, what ought to be done. That's all, like, I think, universal context building and building kind of a shared understanding of what exists. Like I carefully capture like everything that Philip or Emery or anybody else proposes, and I go look at that stuff afterwards, and that's what has been informing a lot of my thinking.
Yeah, if I could jump in, I think that like you're really describing to me something that I've observed and trying to understand, because I didn't at first, was like the NFT shill communities, like these like Web3 groups that it's like cringy how effective it is, frankly, like to see them get engagement and these people show up. It's like extremely, it's really a formulaic, like they have this like the invite tracker, and they have, you know, like retweet campaigns. It's just it's formulaic, but it works. Like, and I'm not saying that, like, you know, I enjoyed that sort of thing. I think it's really shilly and annoying, but it works. Like, and it blows my mind. And just sort of just having that formula, I think that's what it is. I think it's the understanding of, like, you show up at this Discord, there's a thing to do unique to the, you know, kind of unique to this thing, right? They're all, I'll say they've got their roadmap with their unique app, whatever the hell they're gonna do. Right. But you know, and just like, you know, Republic has the app. It's like you go and you show up and you do this thing. Right, you know that there's a specific thing you do, or you show up at a, for example, like a AI art server, right? You know that there's going to be a way to interact and generate some AI art, or something to do there, right? And there's some standard like expectation of like those little intro steps, and like, yeah, applying that to any sort of whatever situation it is you want somebody to engage with. I think that's the, yeah, like you can do it in a less cringy way. That's more engaging and like constructive, you know.
Yeah, I like that.
I could come up with at least 3 or 4 things that a person could do, each of which could be a 5 to 10 minute module that would help them basically engage with what we are thinking about, what we care about, and then give them framework for, like, okay, now that you know what our thoughts are, give us your thoughts. But I think it's hard to sort of ask people to brainstorm in a vacuum, and they don't have any guideposts of which way to go. So I'll give you a really simple example. I have actually started doing this even in my own conversations privately. When I'm trying to get people involved and get excited about this new space of user data ownership, I say, listen, we're going to spend 3 minutes. I'm going to go through a tiny little exercise. Open a browser window, go to Amazon.com, make sure you're logged in. And I say, once you're logged in, tell me. They say, great, takes 30 seconds. Go to Amazon.com/B2B/reports. And they go to that page. That takes 10 seconds. That has 4 fields: report type, start, end, and report name. It takes 30 seconds to go through that. And then they click submit. And a minute later, they have their own Amazon purchase history for the past 1 year sitting on their computer in a flat file, and they can read it. It's human readable. I find that to be an incredibly easy. It takes 3 minutes. It works. It's free. Nobody has to do any development. And it immediately says, oh my God, all of my data is sitting here for the taking. Like, I could have access to my data. I could have a program, a software app, an agent that takes control of this data on my behalf. And it suddenly provides like 0 to 60, like 60% now. We suddenly have a shared language for understanding what we mean when we talk about user data. So we could easily set up 3 or 4 of these exercises that take 5 minutes. And it's sort of a real, like, I'm not a fan of filters. Like, I don't want to make people jump through hoops to participate, but it's almost like if you're not interested in doing those things of your own accord, if we lay them out, then you probably just aren't interested in being like a contributing thought member of the DAO or of the group. And it's okay if you're not, no judgment, but it gets pretty obvious. Like, you should be intrigued by that idea the moment someone lays it out for you.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And I know it's been done in a toxic, like, cringy way, like Elijah, you were saying, but I just think it would be fun to have like badges or something like easy. I think, Elijah, you've used kudos a little bit, or just something like that, where there's like a different badge for each thing. Or like if you subscribe to the blog, and then we verify that like your email's in there, like send you a badge. If you do one of these modules, like each one has its own sort of thing, and we can just kind of like, even maybe if like you've been on the server for a month, then you get something as like a way for lurkers to kind of like have a heartbeat of like, well, maybe you forgot about us, but you are interested. I don't know. What do you think of like handing out badges or just small little tokens?
I think that they are surprisingly effective. Like, my intellectual side of me wants to say that those are stupid and what grown-up wants those, but the non-intellectual side of me has to acknowledge that like there's a little jolt of endorphins when I get this stupid thing and that stupid thing. Like, I've joined several of these servers, and even when they say like, hey, before you can post in general, before you can post in blah blah blah, go do these 3 things. And like a little rat in the maze, I go do those 3 things dutifully, and then at the bottom it says, congratulations, you've done the stupid 3 things, you're now eligible to post. And I'm like, yay. So it works really well. I would be in favor of any of those implementations that don't require development from you, Keith, because I think that's very scarce, precious resource. But Discord has all that stuff built in. Like, we could literally just say, you know, like there are 4 modules and you collect a badge each time. And at that point, you're in the brainstorming section. I don't know, whatever. But you know, you need to go do those things, and then people can actually contribute ideas. So you could say, hey, listen, the criteria for getting out of this module is go stare at your Amazon data and come up with one idea. No judgment on the idea, just any one idea for what you would like to see done with your Amazon data or your Facebook data or your Strava data or whatever it may be. And we can have just that simple little criteria for each, which is, and I think that that's what we care about. We care about people generating cool ideas. So that's not a fake test. That's not like an arbitrary hoop. That's actually the conversation. We're really just trying to stair step you into the conversation we want to have anyway, which is, what are your great ideas?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the first quests from Bankless DAO, what they were doing, you know, to be able to have people jump through all these hoops in order to be able to move to the next topic, and also in order to be able to participate in conversations, you had to jump through some basic hoops to complete quests in order to access certain channels and stuff like that. And I thought it was pretty effective. You know, we didn't earn these tokens or NFTs from it, but that's kind of a cool idea. I mean, I'm a sucker for a POAP, you know, like you said, it's worth nothing, but it kind of gives you that little endorphin kick when you get one. And yeah, that's a really good idea. And to get people maybe using certain aspects of the app in order so they can earn participation, and, you know, and it's kind of blunt, but the right to say something in a way, you know, like, okay, I've used it, so now I can show that I've, you know, experienced the app and kind of know what we're doing here, you know. And that little NFT would be proof of it.
I think that if done correctly, it's not cringy, and it's not a hoop that feels like you're being hazed. It's actually something that builds your motivation and builds your enthusiasm and makes you feel like you're part of something that's worth being part of. And it actually gives you a shared foundation for having more interesting conversations.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to play around with how that might work if anyone else wants to do it too. Or you, Phil, you gotta go.
No, I was raising my hand as someone who has to take responsibility of this task, because I mean, I helped like improve the Discord server when I joined, so I think I'll look more in depth into that, on how I can like integrate those quests and how to create quests on a server. Shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah, and a big blocker for me for like the POAPs have been like the art thing, but I think these like AI art generation things are pretty cool. You can just like come up with like something visually interesting, if not actually like an illustration that's appropriate or something. So that's, to me, that's like an easy thing to just like make a new like AI generated image for like this POAP or whatever it is, the kudos thing.
I'll just go on record as the curmudgeon and say I hate this shit. I haven't disassociated the intellectual side that you were talking about, Summit. Like it's the things it's dumb. Like it still rules my brain, unfortunately. And I've not gone to, like, I've gone to a couple servers where I was like, oh, this is kind of an interesting mission, and then they start with the quest. And I'm like, no, and I've never got back to that server. The bankless quest thing drove me crazy. So I think I'm probably a minority opinion on this, because, like you were saying, Summit, I mean, that the little dopamine rush, like it seems. I think I'm just a curmudgeon here, because I think most people are more into it than I am, but it has steered me the opposite direction. So I'll just go on record to be the grump.
Well,
I
in those
think that-
cases, oh, sorry, I
Sorry,
just
go
wanted
ahead,
to ask real quick if in those cases, was it forced, or did the mere like presence of those things as an option turn you off, Eric?
No, definitely just when it's forced, when it's like
Okay.
when you've got to do the quest to talk.
Mhm.
Like it feels condescending to me. So yeah, that's only when it's coercive, for sure.
Summit, what were you gonna say?
I agree that there is a wrong way to do it that feels arbitrary and hazy and cringy. But the kinds of things I have in mind, and I'm going to share those so that you guys can decide if you have the same things in mind, are a natural part of being part of the Discord. So, for example, if you aren't interested in ever downloading the app that Keith has built, then this probably isn't the right channel for you. So that would be like an obvious task. I call it a quest if you want to make it cute, or call it a task, call it like basic foundation building. Like we all do that. We usually spend 15 minutes of these calls like downloading the latest version. So that's a very natural thing to do that I hope can be done in a way that isn't condescending and doesn't seem arbitrary and stupid. Because it's not meant to create a clique. It's not meant to create arbitrary walls and barriers or be exclusive. It's really meant to say, it's a natural and inherent part of being interested in this server. If you are, then these things will not seem stupid. They'll seem like you should want to download your Amazon data if I've laid it out. You should want to try downloading your Facebook data, your Google data. You should be interested in your whatever data set. If you're not interested in those things, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that this may not be a very useful DAO for you or server for you, because that's what we're here to talk about. So Eric, I'm with you, and maybe you should be on the team that figures out how to roll this out in a way that wouldn't piss you off and be off-putting. I just view these things as like, they're optional, but they should be interesting because they're not stupid busy work. They're just part of having a more fulsome conversation because we have shared experiences and shared perspective on what's out there. Like we should all try. I've tried Poly Poly. It's fascinating. It's a well worth so everyone's time to try Poly Poly and then debate how that is. Like, what do we like about it? What do we not like about it? I can tell you that I think their approach of laying out 15 minutes of instructions on how to get your Google data and then selecting individual files that you upload to them is not going to work.
Yeah, so Eric, if you're still able to talk, I'm interested, like, because you're somebody who came to this, I think, mostly just because like I roped you into it, and so I'm curious, like, you don't necessarily have like a pre-existing interest in this stuff. Like, is there any sort of like onboarding to Re-Public that, like, if it wasn't through me, like, that would have, I don't know, taken you from not interested to interested, or how do you envision that?
Yeah, like I think Summit's on the right track there, where it's where you're basically showing, you're educating them and showing them what's going on, like with their data. I mean, I think the key to that is yeah, that it's like truly like novel and interesting. So I do have a pre-existing like interest in this stuff. It's kind of tangential to the Journo DAO. So it's I'm sorry, Keith, it's not strictly the force of your personality and your will. Yeah, well, formidable as it is. But yeah, I think it's on the right I think it's on the right track. I would be, you know, the most like interesting, like exercises like that is stuff where it's like almost just like like show and tell, where it's like, you know, hey, here's this cool thing, you know, that I discovered that's like in the same ballpark as our mission. You know, radar, which I was in for a while, actually until they kind of started doing a lot of this stuff, was you know, and they're kind of like a trend spotting thing, and you know, so there was a lot of people just like sharing like things that they had found that were cool, and like, you know, things that they thought could be a trend, and that was you know, super fascinating. And that's not quite the same thing that we're talking about here, but I mean, I can, you know, imagine like, you know, here's and like I said, some of it's on the right track, like, you know, here, did you know this about your data, like that kind of a thing.
Yeah, in some ways, like these modules that you're talking about, some that are like the very like smallest item of like stuff that could be in the app later or something. It's like go through this manual process, and maybe that's something that could just be automated later on or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the idea is just to sort of stimulate the brainstorming. So let's just switch gears a minute, just because I think it highlights a different task. Optional, if you're interested in this server, then one thing that you could consider doing is going to Poly. Let's use that specifically, trying it out, and then share 1 or 2 observations or thoughts you have after using Poly. That would have been a huge net positive for me, not a task, not something off-putting, because now that I have tumbled to it, because Phil mentioned it on the last call, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like, you can look at 10 things and you can evaluate for yourself whether you think that those things are good or bad or neutral. And like, I think that that's highly valuable, because now I can express some opinions to you, Keith, and hopefully we can avoid mistakes and do better by building on the shoulders of everybody else that's out there. So I think that those things are just inherently useful, and it shouldn't be difficult to implement those in a way that wouldn't piss anybody off, because what is there to be angry about? This is something that is highly germane to this DAO, to this server. Go give it a try and give us your thoughts. Let's brainstorm about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not if we. Oh, go ahead.
What is Poly? Is that, what is that?
It's another data aggregation, user data management app that has a lot of shared DNA with the conversation here, and they're quite a ways down the path, and it's fascinating to see the choices that they've made. Like, I guarantee you that if you care at all about this server, being driven to go look at Poly, you'd be like, oh, this is awesome. Thank you for that tip. This is so interesting.
And that's an app or like
Yeah,
a DApp?
it's a data management app for you. So you go download Poly, and it is one way of addressing the questions and the challenges of how do I as a user manage my own data and get value out of my own data.
There's a lot to learn from them too. It's nice because, you know, they're a cooperative, not a DAO, but, you know, they cared about like structuring themselves as a cooperative. They also have a foundation and a business. Just as you see, Samir, like if you're interested, just cool. Like, I'm always like trying to find out new initiatives that are working in the space, just to see like what's their approach, what do they care about, did they find, like, notice something that we didn't notice or whatever. So I agree. I totally agree with you. It's just like anyone who cares about the space, it's not a task. It's like a fun thing to do.
Yeah, I think, Eric, you might be reacting to like a childish flavor or an exclusionary tone or work for the sake of work. And I agree that all of those things would annoy me. But what I have in mind would meet the following very simple criteria. The person doing it is like, oh, thanks for the tip. That was awesome. That should be the criteria.
Yeah, that sounds better. Does somebody have a link to Poly?
Yeah, it's poly.coop. I'll write in the chat.
Maybe we should get a .coop domain just in case. Re-Public.coop. And that's, so Jenny was actually like really excited about something along these lines of like creating a list of kind of like all the passive income, like data related apps that are out there, and kind of like, I don't know if she was thinking like we would rate them, or like just explain like the pitfalls and like how it's a bad deal or whatever, but she started sending me stuff. So it's kind of like we could have like, you know, just the apps that we are aware of that are kind of like playing in this space, but are like using bad, like dark patterns and just like not respecting data ownership. And then we can have like that stuff that we like really vibe with, that, you know, we want to take from and contribute to and like form partnerships with and all that stuff. Even, I mean, each one of these could have like a module, but even apart from that, just like, I think building that list, I think, Phil, you've kind of been doing that on our behalf, and I have like a bunch of bookmarks, but if we can put that like in one place that's actually like static on the server, that would be awesome.
I think we could create a channel where there's like a pinned post. Also, I think, yeah, something I'll share on the server, I think Summit will enjoy, is Ono's piece, the one I sent to you, Keith, this week. I think Summit will love that piece.
Yeah, it's pretty recent in the tweets channel too, because I think I tweeted it out yesterday from the Re-Public. And then another exciting thing about that summit is, if you do get a bunch of people doing that, and then you kind of get this crowdsourced like evaluation of these apps, then that can be like, that'd be easy for me or anyone else to like roll up into like a blog post or some, you know, kind of a synthesized like content for the blog or wherever, or
Totally
even to
agree.
like send to Poly directly or like wherever, and be like, hey, this is what our users are saying about your app.
I absolutely agree. I think that it has many values. One of them is it's also a far cheaper way to evaluate product features than us building them one at a time. Like if they're built on an individual feature by feature basis, we can go get feedback on how that resonates with people. If we have people trying these things out, and then we can say, oh, we should build that never, we should build that sooner, we should build that later, we should just park it. Like, I want leverage. And given that there's so much activity in the world, we should be getting lots of leverage.
Yeah, that's exciting. So what's the next thing to do for that?
Well, there are so few of us left on the call, and everything is on your shoulders. So the three of us who are not you should probably volunteer. I will throw a straw man on the ground, and then you guys can kick it to pieces if you want. But maybe, Phil, you can lead this. I will volunteer to write up 3 modules. And I already laid out one for Amazon, and I'll take some screenshots, and I'll make that really easy. And I'll just put that up as a Google Doc. And then we can, take whatever format we want for that data. And I can do 3 of those. And then Eric, maybe one thing that you could do is sort of serve as the evaluator and just make sure that you agree that these are things that would be value added, not impositions that would just annoy someone and turn them off.
Okay, sure.
Okay,
Okay,
I
cool.
think that I would be willing to do all that by next week's call. That's like a half an hour of work for me. I can do it.
Also, I think,
Phil, does that work for you?
yeah, that's fine. I'll adapt. I think also I'll adapt the server to create, because right now there's not really any channel that's fit for this type of like discussion or like repository of other projects. So I'll create the channels in consequence, so that we have somewhere where we can store that information on the Discord server.
Sweet, that's awesome. And part of, just to like the summit, you brought up like my development time, and then it's like hypothetically doing like POAPs or something is like taking away from development time, but in reality it's mostly like this sort of stuff is fun, and so I need I can't just like max out on development time. So some of this stuff I like to just go and fiddle around with this as like a way to, you know, not blow off some steam, but just like get out of development headspace for a little bit. So I'll only volunteer for stuff if it's actually like something like fun that like keeps me happy as far as like just doing something
Hey, no
different.
worries, man. Far be it from me to deny you any pleasures. I just want to be judicious, but it's your call.
Yeah. I'm just saying you don't have to worry. It's I'll only take on stuff that's like, I don't know, a value add for me, like emotionally or otherwise.
Okay, got it.
So Summit, you're doing those 3 like tasks, and then Eric is vetting them
I think Eric
They're-
just serves as a filter.
Yeah,
Like, hey,
as a filter. Yeah.
I would enjoy doing these. So it's a pretty easy task on his side. That's okay.
Yeah.
And then I think you have maybe the most meaty part of it, which is what's the right way to implement those.
Yeah.
I certainly find the whole, like, you can go from, like, I've signed up for only 3 or 4 servers. It's not like I have a ton of experience, but in all of them, it was actually very similar. You have to read the rules. Like, don't be a jerk. Don't say horrible, hateful things.
Mhm.
Then you have to agree to those in some fashion by liking them. And then once you like them, then you're allowed to go to general. Then there might be a couple more things in general. So it's just this way of hopping from basically welcome, because that's where you land, introductions or welcome new person, into general. And then there can be like a brainstorming or ideation one. And we can say, hey, you're welcome to participate anytime you want. But we generally suggest that you take yourself through some self-education and some self-brainstorming. And so you should go through modules 1, 2, 3, 4. So maybe those should sit somewhere. And then people can even have discussions like in an aggregated, maybe there should just be a section for existing products. Like, there are existing products in the world, and it's highly valuable to use them, try them, evaluate them, critique them, brainstorm around them.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
Great, Summit.
Yeah, I think Discord has like the wizards for like when you're actually joining, but is there something that like initiates them like through a command or something like that? Because it seems like what you're talking about is like landing in a chat channel and then having like this pinned thing where you can like click off and like start some sort of like, you know, page 1, page 2, page 3, and then I'm done sort of thing.
I'll do the
That'd be
research.
interesting.
I'll do the research. Yeah, because I have also been like on servers where there's some quests, but I think I'll just probably like leave Bankless and then join back again to see what the mechanism is like, and do that with a bunch of servers. I'll figure it out. I'm up for the challenge.
Cool. Thanks for taking that on, both of you. I don't know. What do you think about making this like a 90-minute block of time? Like, we don't always have to fill it, but it seems like it always seems like I have a sparse agenda, but then, you know, we end up going over. It might just be good to set expectations that like this could go for 90 minutes. Seems like a lot of our frequent people have like a hard stop at an hour, but I don't know, for people who want to stick around or join late.
Why not? I mean,
Okay.
I would actually suggest 1 hour, only because if we end up causing people to say, oh, it's a 90-minute block, why don't I join at 10:45? Then that's going to take what's already a little bit of it's a small core group, right, of however many people come. If they then split themselves in half, then you, Keith, are on for 90 minutes. It might be largely duplicative. Like, I had to join at 10:40 because I couldn't get out of at 10 a.m. And that's why I'm sort of sticking around a little longer. But I might just keep it at an hour for now and let this bleed over. I wouldn't want to see people self-segregating and it just becomes like 2 back-to-back meetings rather than 1 continuous meeting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe I'll just start like announcing that we don't have a hard stop, but just like tell people to drop off whenever. But if things are cooking and we want to keep going, then, you know, I'm prepared to stick around for 90 minutes.
Well, on that note, I need to drop
Yeah.
'cause I'm late.
Same here.
I'm glad I got
Alright.
to see you guys.
Have a
Yeah,
good
good to
week.
see you,
I'll
man.
see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Yes. Bye.
Okay, bye.